Hello friends, welcome to Awdhesh Academy. Friends, in every organization, the employees have to follow certain code of ethics and code of conduct. These two are very similar terms, but still there are differences between them. So friends, let us understand what is code of ethics and code of conduct. Code of ethics and code of conduct are the standard that a group must adhere to so as to remain the member of the organization. When we join any organization, whether it is government or we join private sector or you join hospitality industry or you join any other organization, in every organization there are certain code of ethics and certain code of conduct which we have to follow if we want to become member of that organization. So every government department, every private organization has certain code of ethics and code of conduct. What is code of ethics? Code of ethics are the set of principles that influence the judgment. That means when we are making a judgment, in that situation, the code of ethics help us in taking the right decision, right judgment. Code of conduct are basically the set of guidelines that influence employees' action. So action, which is a visible part of the behavior of the person, is the code of conduct. While the idea behind that, why that action is happening, on what basis, on what judgment we have taken the action, that is basically code of ethics. Let's go further on that. Let's now come to code of ethics first. The code of ethics basically represents the set of principles which influence the judgment of the person. What does it mean? It means that what is my judgment? That in this situation, what should I do? Should I take gift or should I not take gift? Should I take favor or should I not take favor? That is basically something which is important in code of ethics. Code of ethics basically describe the core values of the organization that guides the decision making. Every organization had certain ethical values. Those are basically the code of ethics. The code of ethics may include values like honesty, political neutrality, and impartiality, which must guide an officer while taking a decision. That means when we are taking a decision, we should be honest. We should not take favor from the politicians. We should be politically neutral. We should be impartial. Now, these are something which guide us. It doesn't mean that if we are impartial, there will be going to an action, because these are what we are expected to do. We should be impartial. These actually decides our moral judgment. Now, suppose somebody doesn't follow the code of ethics, then some action has to be taken. So we have to define what is impartiality, what is dishonesty, so that if somebody does it, an action is taken against that person. Now, code of conduct are the actual set of rules or ethical standards issued by the organization that provide do's and don'ts to govern the action of the person. So, what is to be done and what is not to be done, that is prescribed in the code of conduct. For example, accepting a gift. It may not be totally prohibited. Taking a small gift like a box of sweet may not change your mind or may not lead to a corrupt practice, may not affect your decision. But if you are taking a big gift, that can affect your decision. So how much you can accept and how much you should not accept, that is basically decided in the code of conduct. The ideal situation is that you should not accept anything at all. But to some extent, you have to make concessions, and that's how code of conduct come into picture. And code of conduct are written documents, and all the members must adhere to these codes. If the member violates these provisions, action may be taken against him for violating the code of conduct. Now, code of conduct may include provisions like not accepting a gift from a person with whom the organization does business or not joining a political party, etc. Because these are specific considerations. If you accept a gift beyond a particular limit, it will be a violation of code of conduct, action can be taken. In the same way, if you join a political party, action will be taken. So code of conduct are basically the specific set of rules which decides that certain actions you should not do, while the code of ethics guides you in line with the ethics of the organization to do the right action. So I hope that this is clear to you and you can write a great answer on the basis of this. Thank you very much. Hello friends, welcome to Awdhesh Academy. Friends, today we are going to learn about the conduct rules for civil servants. When a person joins the civil services, he has to follow certain conduct in his personal life as well as in the professional life. Because a civil servant is a highly visible person in India. Whatever he does often becomes a news, and therefore if he does not behave properly, it may cause a lot of embarrassment to the government, and that is not expected of a civil servant. So let's learn about the conduct rules. There are different types of conduct rules in India. The Civil Services Conduct Rules 1964 is meant for the central government employees. This is not applicable for railways, all India services, public sector corporations or autonomous bodies. The second type of conduct rules are called All India Services Conduct Rules, that is 1968. This conduct rule is applicable for the All India services which are IAS, IPS and Indian Forest Service. Then we have separate conduct rules for railway employees, which is called the Railway Services Conduct Rule 1966. So there may be different type of conduct rules, but broadly speaking, they are common. They are based on the common principles. So if we study one conduct rule, that will give us the broad idea about all other conduct rules as well. So we are going to learn about the Central Civil Services Conduct Rules, and then we can use the same things for the other conduct rules also. First of all, what is the authority of the conduct rule? The authority of the conduct rule comes from the Article 309 of the Constitution, which says as following: the recruitment and conditions of service of persons serving the union or a state. That means it is applicable for the state government as well as for the union government. It says, subjected to the provisions of this Constitution, acts of the appropriate legislature may regulate the recruitment and the conditions of services for the person appointed to the public services and post in connection with the affairs of the union or of any state. That means the Constitution empowers the central government as well as the state government to prescribe certain code of conduct for their employees which they are bound to follow. So let us start with the conduct rules. The first is the general clauses of the conduct rule, which are provided in the Rule 3 of the rules. It says that you have to maintain at all times absolute integrity and devotion to duty. And you have to do nothing which is unbecoming of a government employee. Now, what is unbecoming of a government employee? Now, let us say you are an IAS officer, you are a district magistrate, and you go to a bar where you drink and you dance in a very obscene manner. Now, that is unbecoming of a government employee because you are not maintaining the dignity of the post. The same may not be an offense for a common citizen, but it may be an offense as a government employee because you are spoiling the reputation of a government officer. You should be impartial while discharging duties. You have to maintain political neutrality. You have to see that, the government officers often try to align with a particular political party, which is a very bad thing because as per the conduct rule, you should maintain the political neutrality. The politicians come to power for 5 years and they go, but the bureaucrats are there till they retire. And it is expected of the bureaucrats not to work as an agent of the political masters, but maintain neutrality and do the work according to the law. The civil servants should perform their duties using their best judgment, except when acting on the orders of the superior officer. You have to decide all the matters according to what you think is the best decision. However, when the superior gives you an order, you are bound to follow that order. And therefore, you must expect that order to be in writing. So the orders of the superior official should be writing, and if it is an oral order, it should be converted into writing as soon as possible. See, sometimes it is not practical that an order is given in writing. You will be asked on phone, do this. Suppose there is a riot taking place. Suppose there is a law and order problem. Now you cannot expect that the things will be given in writing that you go to this place, do this. You may be given an oral order and you have to follow that. But all the orders which are oral in nature must be reproduced in writing as soon as possible. So if your boss says do this, you can do this. But at the same time, you must see that he gives that order in writing. So you can request your boss, please give me this order in writing, though I have done the job. So it should be done as soon as possible. Suppose boss refuses. Then in that case, what can happen is that you can write a letter to the boss and you can mention there that according to your orders such and such on such and such time, I have done this. And therefore, this will also be considered to be a compliance in the written form, because if the boss does not deny, it will presume that boss has given that order. The next conduct rule is promptness and courtesy. A civil servant should be prompt and it should be courteous. You have to be courteous and polite to the public and the public representative like MPs and MLAs. You should not willfully delay and maintain decency and decorum at the workplace. You must have seen that a couple of months ago, there were some government officers who were dancing in their office hours in the office, and a video was recorded and it became viral, and thereafter action was taken against them. So the question comes, from where the authority comes? It is from here, because you have to maintain the dignity and decorum in the workplace. At your home, what you do is not the concern of the government officer, but when you are in a public place or when you are in office, you have to behave in a dignified manner. Then you have to provide the information as required under the RTI Act. Then the next rule says that you should act in accordance with the government policies and rule. What is the meaning of it? Sometimes we do not agree with certain provisions and rules of government because we feel those are not right or those are not adequate or those are not actually required. But we don't have an option. If government has prescribed a rule, all the civil servants must follow that rule. This is mandatory. The next is no indulgence in any act of sexual harassment or abuse of any woman at the workplace. So if you are trying to harass a woman in the workplace, that is also prohibited according to the conduct rule. The next is about the employment of near relative in companies or firm enjoying government patronage. As a government officer, you are very powerful. And often what happens that there are many companies which are dependent upon the government for the grants and for compliance of different type of provisions. So it is very easy for you to dial the number of the MD or the top boss and say, give employment to somebody who is known to me, my relative or like that. This is prohibited in the conduct rules. You cannot do that. So the rule says, don't use your influence to secure employment to your kith and kin. So it's not only your sons and daughter, even to the relatives, you are not supposed to use your influence to get the job for them. Not only this, you have to inform the government if your family member takes an appointment in a company having official dealing with you. For example, if you are a tax officer, you are a commissioner, and there are many companies which are under your jurisdiction, then if any of your son or daughter, your family member, get a job in that company, then you should inform the government. It's not prohibited. He or she can take the job. All you have to do is to inform the government so that the government can see whether the person has got the job on merit or got the job because of your influence. You should not award contract to the company or person or any members of your family who is employed there. Son or daughter or any member of the family is an employee in a particular company, you should avoid giving any contract to them. The next conduct rule is about taking part in the politics and the election. This is very, very important for us because the central government officers and the state government officers and also the All India Services officer, all officers should maintain political neutrality. They should not be aligned with a particular political ideology or political party. So it is said in this conduct rule, don't become a member of a political party or take part in any political activity. It is also said that don't canvass or use your influence or take part in election to any legislature or local authority. So as a government employee, you cannot fight an election of MP or MLA or even a local authority. So government officers has to maintain political neutrality and they should not contest any election. The next conduct rule is about joining of association or unions. It says, don't join or continue to be a member of an association the objects or activities of which are prejudicial to the interest of the sovereignty and integrity of India or public order or morality. So if there is any organization which is working against the sovereignty and integrity of India or public order or morality, you should not join such association. And if you have already joined an association, you must leave this association as soon as you find that it falls into one of these categories. The next conduct rule, which is governed by Rule 7, it talks about the demonstration and strike. This rule prohibits the government employees to engage or participate in any demonstration which is prejudicial to the interest of the sovereignty and integrity of India, to the security of the state, to the friendly relation with foreign states, to the public order, decency or morality, or which involve contempt of court, defamation or incitement to an offense. So if there is any demonstration or strike in such matters, you should not participate in such events. You must have also seen that the government officers generally don't talk to the media and share their opinion about the political matters. Why? This is a very, very interesting question, because some of the government officers go to the public media for everything, and that's not a correct thing. Because according to the conduct rules, you have to maintain distance from the press and media. So the rule 8 of the conduct rule says about the connection with press and media. It says, don't own or conduct or participate in the editing or management of any newspaper or other periodical publication or electronic media except in the bona fide discharge of your official duties. That means you should not own or participate in any of the press and media. It also says that when publishing a book or participating in a public media, make clear that the views expressed are your own and not of government. See, what happens that our government officers work in dual capacity. One as an individual, other as an authority. For example, if I am a tax officer and I am a commissioner in Custom and Excise Department, if I share any view which is regarding the matters of custom excise or GST, then it will be construed to be the view of the commissioner, and commissioner represents the government of India, and therefore this view becomes the view of the government of India. So it should be very much clear when we are writing any article in a newspaper. If it is in the personal capacity, we should always write that this is my personal view and not of the government. However, if you are writing that article because you have been authorized by the government to share the view of the government, then you don't have to give this, because there you will be writing as a commissioner who is representing the government. But anything which is personal in nature, you must always put a disclaimer that these views are your own and not of the government. Another very, very important point you should know is about the criticism of the government. See, when we join the government as a civil servant, we become part of the government. The government and the government employee are not different. Just like the ocean and the drop of the ocean are one and the same thing. It is from the drops only the ocean is made. In the same way, it is from the employees that the government is made. And therefore, you are prohibited to criticize the government. So the conduct rule says, don't criticize the policies of government in any forum. It also says, don't make a statement that can be embarrassing for central-state relation or to a foreign state. And it also says, you can only express your view in your official capacity or in the due performance of your duties. So as a commissioner of, say, custom and excise or income tax, if you have made a case, then you are allowed to conduct a press conference and share the details of the case. So that is your official duty. If it is prescribed in your official duty that you should give release to the press for important cases, you can do it as a part of official duty. But otherwise, you should not go to the press and share your personal thoughts and beliefs with them. The criticism of the government is very, very important. You should never criticize the government because you are part of the government, and if you criticize the government, you are basically maligning the reputation of the government, and that is not permitted in the government services. So today we have learned about some conduct rules which are applicable for the civil servants. There are more conduct rules which we shall learn in the next part of the lesson. Thank you very much. Friends, we are continuing with the chapter of conduct rules for civil servants. So, some more conduct rules we are going to learn in the part 2 and the concluding lecture of conduct rules. The civil servants are not supposed to give any evidence in connection with any inquiry before the sanction of the government. So, if you call some civil servant to give a witness, a committee is constituted and they want to examine the civil servant on certain matters. In that situation, the civil servants cannot give a statement unless the government permits it. But there are certain exceptions. What are these exceptions? Evidence before an authority appointed by the government, parliament or the state legislature. There you have to go and give evidence, no permission required. Evidence given in any judicial inquiry. Evidence given in any departmental inquiry. For these things no permissions are required, but for other things you require permission. The 11th rule of the conduct rule says unauthorized communication of information. As a government officer, we have got access to so much of information. For example, as an income tax commissioner, you may have access of the entire earning, the business of a particular assessee. In the same way, in every department, we have got a lot of access of information, which may be correspondence between one government department to another, between an individual to the government department, by the politicians, by the bosses. So you are not required to share that information with other people. So the law says, don't communicate directly or indirectly any official document or information to any other person to whom you are not authorized to communicate. So if you are authorized to give information to a particular person, you can give. But if you are not authorized, you are not supposed to share that information which is there in the government files. The next conduct rules deals with subscriptions. Let me explain this first. Suppose you are a powerful government officer, you are an SP or DM or a commissioner, and some of your friends want to raise fund for his activity, any activity. It can be private activity, it can be charitable activity. Then you are not supposed to help that person and tell your people that please contribute or subscribe. That's not allowed. So the rule says, don't accept contribution to or otherwise associate himself or yourself with the raising of any fund or other collections in cash or in kind in pursuance of any object except with the previous sanction of the government. But suppose the activity of the person is for the society, in that case you can seek permission from the government, and after the government permits you, then you can help him raising the funds. The next conduct rule is very, very important. It deals with the gift provisions. You must have seen that many government officers get lavish gift at their birthdays, at their parties. It is not corruption if you receive some gift from somebody, because corruption means you are doing something illegal or wrong thing, or you are doing an act and for that you are getting a particular amount of money. But in case of gift, there is no corresponding action is required. No quid pro quo is required, and therefore gift are not same as bribe. But the government has put some conditions to control the acceptance of gift. So it says, don't accept or permit any members of your family to accept any gift with a person with whom you have an official dealing. So there is no prohibition that your father cannot give you gift, your mother cannot give you gift, your close relative cannot give you gift. That is permitted. But if somebody is having an official dealing with you, you are not expected to accept that gift. But small gifts can be accepted on certain occasions. So the government has permitted a small acceptance of gift. For example, for all India services officers, IAS, IPS and IFS, the rule says like this: you may accept gift from the near relative or from personal friends having no official dealings with you on the occasions such as weddings, anniversaries, up to rupees 25,000. But if the value of the gift exceeds rupees 25,000, you must report that gift to the government. And if the government permits, then only you can keep it. If it is any other person, that means somebody who is not your relative, somebody who is not your close friend, or somebody who is having an official dealing with you, in that situation, the upper limit is 5,000 only. So if the gift is more than 5,000, you cannot accept it, you have to report to the government. If the government permits, maybe yes, otherwise you have to deposit that with the government. In the same way, this rule also says, don't accept lavish or frequent hospitality from any person having an official dealing with you. So if you are a tax officer and there is a 5-star hotel who invites you for a party, free dinner, free lunch, then you should not take it, because this is prohibited according to this rule. Rule 13A deals with the dowry, where it is said that don't give or take or abet the giving or taking of dowry. So this is prohibited under the law also, and it is also prohibited under the conduct rule. Then you must have seen that many times what happens that big SSCs, big contractors, they give some party in the honor of the government officer, conduct some event in the honor of a government officer. So the government officer may not be taking any money, he may not be doing anything illegal, but his presence increases the influence and the importance of that particular organization or that particular SSC or contractor. And so this is also prohibited. So the rule 14 says, don't receive any complimentary or valedictory address held in your honor or in the honor of any other government servant without prior permission of the government. So you have to ask the permission, and the government says yes, you can go ahead, you can do it. But there are exceptions. Exception is only in the case of retirement, transfer or resignation. If such function is organized, then you can attend. And the reason is very clear, that if you have retired or transferred or resigned, thereafter you cannot benefit that person. And therefore, on such occasions you can do, but other occasions you cannot do. The next conduct rule 15 is also very, very important. It deals with the private trade or employment. I receive many questions on this. Many people ask me, if I am doing a government job and along with that, if I am doing some business also, what is the problem? Is it permitted? No, it is not permitted. You cannot have a side by side another employment or any business. Government job is a 24/7 job. You have to give your 100%. That's not permitted. So the rule 15 prohibits any private trade or employment. It says, without the sanction of the government, don't engage directly or indirectly in any trade or business. Don't negotiate for or undertake any other employment. That means when you are in the government service, you are not supposed to negotiate with another private party for any job. That's not permitted. Only after you resign, you can negotiate. Because when you are in the government, you can use your influence and get a top paying job. So that's not permitted. You are also not allowed to hold any elective office or converse for a candidate or candidate for an elective office of anybody. And you are not supposed to canvass in support of any business or insurance agency, commission agency owned or managed by any member of your family. So if your wife or any relative is a LIC agent or an agent of an insurance company, you cannot ask other people to buy policies from that person. That's not permitted. However, certain things are permitted. For example, you can undertake honorary work of a social, charitable, literary, artistic or scientific character. So such type of honorary work you can do. If there is a social organization, if a charitable organization, and they request you to do some work for them, that's permitted, because they are not for making profit. You can participate in the sports activities as amateur, that's permitted. So you can join an Indian team and once in a while you can become an umpire. So that is possible. With the government permission you can do that, that's permitted. But not as a professional. If you want to become a professional, please resign from the government service. You are permitted to take part in the registration, promotion or management of a literary, scientific or charitable society or cooperative society whose activities are bona fide. So as a government officer, it is not prohibited that you cannot be associated with any charitable organization. If the intention or the purpose of that organization is bona fide, you can join them and you can even promote them, but not a business entity. The next is to report to the government if any member of your family is engaged in a trade or business or own or manages an insurance company or commission agency. So if any of your relative or member of the family, basically the member of the family, is an insurance agent, you have to report to the government. Don't accept any fee or for the work done by you for any private or public body or any private person without the sanction of prescribed authority. So suppose you are an officer and a private body calls you for lecture and gives you some money. Then you cannot accept that money unless you take the permission from the prescribed authority. The next conduct rule 15A deals with the government accommodations. You must have seen that the government officer often get big houses. Now they cannot lease that house to somebody. So you are not supposed to lease the government accommodation which is allotted to you. And you have to vacate the government accommodation within the time prescribed which is provided under the law. For example, the retired government officer should vacate their accommodation within 6 months. So in the same way, for all the conditions, a time limit is prescribed and you should vacate your government accommodation within that prescribed time. The conduct rule 16 deals with investment, lending and borrowing. It says don't speculate in any stock, share or other investment. So please remember, there is no prohibition in buying the shares from the market, but you are not supposed to speculate. Don't buy in the morning, sell in the evening. Keep it for the long term. Keep it for the investment, but don't become a stockbroker. So speculation is prohibited, not the buying of it. Don't make or permit any member of your family to make any investment which is likely to embarrass or influence you in the discharge of your official duties. Now let us say there is a big company which falls under your jurisdiction and your family member is having a share over there. So that can create an embarrassment, because people expect that since your family member is having a share, you will not do any harm to the company. If you do any harm, it will reduce the profit of your family member. And so please don't take shares in the company where you are having an official dealing. 17th is insolvency and habitual indebtedness. A government officer should not get into the habit of taking a lot of debt. So the habitual indebtedness or insolvency is to be avoided. It should not be done. You should report the full facts to the government if any legal proceeding for the recovery of any debt or adjudging you as an insolvent is pending before the court. So if you have filed for such type of petition or any matter is pending before the court, you should inform the government. The 18th conduct rule deals with the movable and immovable property. If you are purchasing any movable property or immovable property, you must inform the government if it is beyond a particular limit. In case of immovable property, all information has to be given. In case of movable property, a certain exemption limit is there beyond which you have to inform the government. It says report acquisition and disposal of any immovable or movable property which is beyond a specified limit within 1 month. So you are not prohibited in acquiring or selling the property, but you have to inform the government. You have to obtain previous sanctions if such transaction is with a person having an official dealing with you. So if there is a person who is under your charge, there is a company who is under your charge, or you have made a case against a particular party, or there is a taxpayer who is under your charge, and if you are buying some property from that person, you must inform the government so that the government can see whether the price is fair or not. You should submit the details of your movable, immobile property at the time of joining the service. When the government officer joins a service, he has to provide the details of all his mobile and immobile property. And you have to file the annual property returns every year. So this is also important. Whatever the property you are owing, you have to inform to the government every year. The Rule 19 of the Conduct Rule deals with the vindication of the acts and character of government employee. It says don't take recourse in any court or to the press for the vindication of any official act without permission from the government. Recently, a case was brought when a government officer was issued a charge sheet or a show cause notice, and he had made it public to the media. He has put it on the social media, and this became a news. That's not allowed. If there is any action within the government against you, you should not go to the court or the press. If no such sanction is received by the government servant within the period of 3 months, it is deemed to be granted. You have to take sanction and then you can do it. You can go to the court also, you can go to the press also, but only with the permission of the government. If the government does not give you permission for 3 months, then it is deemed to be granted and then you can go, but not without giving that at least 3 months of time to the government. The Rule 20 of the Conduct Rule says about canvassing of non-official or other influence. It says that don't bring any political or other outside influence to further your interest. That means you should not use political pressure to get to transfer and posting. That is prohibited under this rule. The Rule 21 deals with the restriction regarding marriage. It says that don't marry with a person having a spouse living except if permitted under your personal law. That means you cannot marry an already married person, and you have to inform the government if you are marrying a foreigner. The Rule 22 deals with the consumption of intoxicating drinks and drugs. This says don't consume intoxicating drink against the law to come intoxicating during your office. So if the law prohibits that you should not take any alcohol, you should not do. And even if the law permit, then you should not come to the office with the drunken condition. So that's not permitted. Don't consume any intoxicating drink or drug in the public place or appear in the public place in the state of intoxication. So if you are drunk and driving, if you are drunk and you are behaving in a very absurd manner, that's again a violation of the conduct rule. Rule 22A, this deals with the employment of the children below 14 years of age. So you are prohibited to employ any child which is below 14 years of age at your home. This is not permitted. So you cannot have a child labor at your home working as a maid or a servant. So today we have learned about all the remaining provisions of the conduct rules. So the conduct rules are very, very important. If you do not follow the conduct rule, then the disciplinary action can be taken against you, and disciplinary action can lead to minor penalty or the major penalty. It can even lead to the dismissal from the service. So as a government officer, you are expected to follow this code of conduct, these conduct rules. That's very, very important, and we should know what are the conduct rules before we are going to join the service. And this is also very important chapter in the syllabus of Ethics, Integrity and Aptitude. Thank you very much for watching the video. Friends, we know that in India, the bureaucracy or the civil servants are called the steel frame of India because they provide the support to the entire government structure. The political leaders come and go, but the bureaucrats remain there for full 30-35 years, and they provide the continuity as far as the governance is concerned. Most of the powers are also vested with the government officers only. For example, the district magistrate, the superintendent of police, or commissioner of income tax, they have been given the power by the law, and they exercise these power independent of the political masters. Politicians have the role to transfer them, but they do not have the power to work on behalf of the government officers. So the public servants and the politicians, both roles are divided. What the public servant can do or what the civil servants can do, the politicians cannot do, and what politicians do, the civil servants cannot do. But both have to work together in harmony with each other for providing good governance for the country. And therefore, it is important that both these organs, that is politicians as well as the bureaucrats, both are part of the executive and both must have high ethical conduct if we want India to progress and if we want that good governance is provided to the citizens of India. So for this purpose, the Government of India has prepared a draft public service bill in 2007 based on the recommendations of the Second Administrative Reform Commission. And that basically provided the ethical code for the public servants. So we are going to discuss those ethical codes now. First of all, what are the ethical codes for the public servants? That means basically the civil servants. So let us read them one by one and let us understand them one by one. The first is that allegiance to Constitution and the law, democracy, nationalism, sovereignty, integrity of India, and the security of the nation. So it is to understand that the allegiance of the civil servant should be with the Constitution and not with any political party. So the political party may come and go, but if they ask you to do something which is against the Constitution, then a civil servant can definitely say no to that person. The civil servants should function in an apolitical manner. That means they should not have any political affiliation. Even though politicians may be their boss, but they should not have a political affiliation. They must work according to the law. They should serve as an instrument of good governance. They should provide good governance to the citizen, and that is their main purpose. They should act objectively, impartially, honestly, equitably, diligently, and in a fair and just manner. This is all the qualities of the civil servant which every civil servants are expected to have. They should act with integrity in a courteous and transparent manner. They should also establish high standard and ensure quality service. You have to understand that the civil servants are selected with the highest level of parameters which has been set by the Government of India. They have prelims, they have mains, they have then interviews. And this process takes 1 full year. And so there is no other competition in India and perhaps not even in the world which has such a rigorous selection process. And therefore we expect that once the civil servant work into the field, they should provide the best quality of services. They should be accountable for their decisions and they should uphold the highest ethical standard. The SARC has also provided that they should establish merit in employment, promotion and placement. That means whenever there is a question of employing somebody, it should be on merit. When there is a question of promotion, it should be on merit. And similarly, when there is a placement, that is transfer, posting or any charge distribution, that should also be purely based on merit. There should be no discrimination based on caste, community, religion, gender or class. This is very important because civil servants is a professional job. There should be absolutely no discrimination on any parameter. They should protect the interests of the poor, underprivileged and weaker section. The civil servants should ensure that public monies are used in the utmost economy and care. We all know that India is a poor country. A lot of people live below poverty line. Their condition is absolutely pathetic. And therefore, when the government officers have to spend their money, they should spend their money in the best possible manner, in the most economical manner. They should provide a workplace that is free from the discrimination. A civil servant should not discriminate the people on any criteria. They should provide a workplace relation that values communication, consultation and cooperation. This is also very, very important for us to understand. You see, civil servants should not behave like a military. They should not expect too much of discipline. They must expect that there should be consultation within the department, consultation with the public, because we work in a very transparent manner. We are part of the society and we have to work very much in coordination with the public. We are there to fulfill the public obligation and therefore the consultation process is important. Cooperation is also very, very important. They should give reasonable opportunity to all eligible members to apply for public services employment. So the civil servant should also see that the employment is not restricted to a particular class of people, but rather it should be open to all people so that everybody can apply for it. The SARC has also prescribed certain code of ethics and code of conduct for the ministers. So let us understand these things also. The SARC has recommended that the minister should uphold the highest ethical standard. Civil servants are generally on a background. Civil servants are not discussed in the media, but the politicians are always in the media, and therefore they must maintain higher standards, otherwise it will have a bad impact on the society. The minister should uphold the principle of collective responsibility. This is very, very important, because as you are aware that whatever decisions are taken by the chief minister or by the government, it may be taken by an individual, in the sense that chief minister may be taking a decision, or maybe you are not agreeing to what decision has been taken by the government. But as far as you are part of the government, you must also be held responsible for the collective decision making, because whatever decision is taken, it is taken by the cabinet, it is taken by the government. So you should be responsible for that. So accept the collective responsibility of being a minister. Then a minister should be accountable to the parliament for the policies, decisions and actions of their department. The minister should ensure that there is no conflict between their public duties and private interests. So whatever is the public duties, they should see that it does not impact their private interest. That means they should ensure that if they are having a business, that business does not get any undue advantage because of their being in power. They should keep separate their role as minister and a constituency member. See, ministers have a lot of power. For example, if you are a railway minister, you decide where the rails track will be made, where the rails will ply. In the same way, each minister has their power. And if they use that position to cater to their constituency and not to the nation, that is not a good thing. And that is why it has been advised that they should keep their separate role as minister and the constituency member. Ministers should not use the government resources for party or political purposes. They should not use the government vehicles and the helicopters and all these facilities for doing campaigning and for the political purpose. They should uphold the political impartiality of the civil services. They should not try to influence the civil services. They should not try to give the temptation to the civil servant that they will make them ministers or they will give some sort of illegal or different type of benefits. So they should uphold the political impartiality of the civil services, should not try to politicize them. That is expected of them. Then the minister should use public money with utmost economy and care. They should also serve as instrument of good governance. Finally, the minister should act objectively, impartially, honestly, equitably, diligently, and in a fair and just manner. The minister should not see that they cater only to those people who vote for them, because ministers are also political executives. They are also belonging to a political party. So they should be fair and just to everybody. So today we have learned about the different types of recommendations which have been made by the Second Administrative Reform Commission in respect of the Code of Ethics for civil servants and ministers. So I hope that you have been able to understand this, and this is a very, very important chapter because you can expect some questions from this chapter in your examination. Thank you very much for watching the video. Friends, we have earlier learned about the code of conducts for the civil servants. Today we are going to learn about the code of conducts for the ministers. These code of conducts were the outcome of the recommendations which has been made by the Second Administrative Reform Commission. After the recommendations were made about the ethics of the minister, the Government of India, Ministry of Home Affairs, has issued certain code of conducts for the minister which are applicable for central as well as the state government. So let us now understand the code of conduct for the ministers. The first is dealing with the business and interest. It says that the ministers should declare their assets, liabilities and business interests of self and their family to the Prime Minister or the chief minister of their respective states. They should dissociate themselves with the conduct and management of the business which are owned by them. So the business can still be owned by them, they can still be the owner, but the day-to-day management of the business, day-to-day conduct of the business, they should not do, they should dissociate themselves, because being a minister is a full-time job and they cannot simultaneously do a business along with that. So they can own the business, but they have to dissociate with the day-to-day management of the business. They are also required to give up their interest and management of a business which supplies goods and services to the government, which depends on the licenses, permits, quota or lease from the government, because they are in power and that will create a conflict of interest. The second part deals with the prohibition. The ministers, as soon as they come to the office and as long as they are in the office, they are required to furnish the annual declaration regarding their assets and liabilities to the Prime Minister. They should refrain from buying from or selling to the government any immobile property. This is very, very logical, because if they purchase from the government some property, they can purchase from the lower value, and if they sell the government any property, they can sell at the higher value. So this is being prohibited to them. They should refrain from starting or joining any business. If the business is already there, they can continue, but they should not start a new business or join any new business. They should ensure that the family members do not deal with the business dependent primarily on the grant of licenses, permits, quota or lease. They should report to the Prime Minister or the Chief Minister if any member of his family sets up or join a business. So these are the controls which has been put on the ministers. The third point deals with the restrictions on the family members of the ministers. It is not only the ministers but also their family members who should follow certain code of conduct, and minister is responsible if they do not follow those code of conduct. First is that they should not personally or through a member of his family accept any contribution for any purpose. They should not associate with raising of funds except for the benefit of, number one, the registered society, a charitable body or an institution recognized by the public authority, or for political party. So for political party they can raise funds, and for NGOs also they can raise funds, but other than that they should not use their position to raise funds. The fourth code of conduct is regarding restrictions on accepting gifts and awards. The ministers are very powerful people. When they go abroad or when they go to any party, they are given expensive gift. This is one thing which they should avoid, and the rules provide that a minister or his family member should not accept valuable gift except from the close relative. A minister may receive gifts if he goes abroad or from foreign dignitaries in India, but such gifts will be falling into two categories. What are those? The first category is like symbolic, like the sword of honor, ceremonial robes, which can be retained by the recipient. The second is other, which can be retained by the minister if its value is less than 5,000 rupees. Suppose the gift is more than rupees 5,000, then minister should not accept it and it should be deposited with the Tosh Khana. And Tosh Khana will do a valuation of the gift, and if the value is less than 5,000 rupees, minister can keep it, and if the value is more than 5,000, then minister can pay the difference and then he can retain the gift. The fifth conduct rule is dealing with the conduct on the foreign tours. A minister should, while on the foreign tour, as far as practicable, stay in an accommodation belonging to himself or maintained by the government, government undertakings, public bodies or institutions, or in the recognized hotels. So they should not stay in a private accommodation, they should not stay in the accommodation of somebody with whom they are having an official dealing, because all these things can perhaps affect their business or affect their performance or integrity. They should avoid attending as far as possible ostentatious or lavish parties given to his honor. These are the things which he should avoid. Now the question is that if the minister does not follow this code of conduct, then how these things are going to be enforced? So it has been provided that the Prime Minister will be the enforcing agency or enforcing authority as far as the union ministers are concerned. As far as the chief ministers are concerned, the enforcing authority will be the Prime Minister and the Union Home Minister. Then as far as other ministers are concerned of the state government, it will be the Chief Minister who will be the enforcing authority. So these are the code of conduct which has been provided for the ministers. So these are similar to the code of conduct which are for civil servants, but of course different because ministers are appointed only for 5 years and they are generally doing some other job, and after that also they get into business and other activities. So these are not same, but many provisions are quite similar in both the types of code of conduct. So friends, today we have learned about the code of conduct which has been provided for the ministers, and we have learned about what the code of conduct and how these code of conducts are enforced. Thank you very much for watching the video.